Hello everyone. So it's me Yano and hope you all are fine and safe at your home. And again welcome back to my YouTube channel We Got Tutorials. So friends, as you all know today we are going to study the first chapter from your history textbook, that is from the beginning of time. So let us move on into the chapter. Okay, so all of you are ready? So let us move on, friends. So this chapter traces the beginning of human existence. It was 5.6 million years ago, written as MYA, that the first human like creatures appeared on the Earth's surface. After this, several forms of humans emerged and then became extinct. Okay, so here it is saying that in this chapter, it is mainly focusing on the beginning of the human existence. Okay, so in this chapter, we are going to study about the beginning of the human existence and how they have evolved and how their beginning was. Okay, so, and here it is saying that the beginning of human existence was about 5.6 million years ago. Okay, so 5.6 million years ago only the humans have been existed in this world. Okay, it has been said by the archaeological department. Okay, so the beginning of human existence only we are going to study in this chapter, and here it is saying that the beginning of human existence was about which year is about 5.6 million years ago. Okay, and after this, several forms of humans have been emerged and then became extinct. Yes, after the beginning of human existence, they have been died and disappeared from the surface. But again and again, there are several forms of humans have been emerged, but they all became what extinct. Okay, that human beings resembling us, henceforth referred to as modern humans, originated about 160,000 years ago. During this long period of human history, people obtained food by either scavenging or hunting animals and gathering plant produce. They also learned how to make stone tools and to communicate with each other. So here it is saying that the human beings like us, that means the intelligent human beings, we are intelligent only. So we are known as what, or we are referred to as modern humans because we have the intelligence to think about anything that matters us. All right. Okay, so we have intelligence, so we are known as modern humans, and the modern humans like us have been originated in this earth's surface only about 160,000 years ago. Okay, and during this long period of human history, that means 116,000 years ago means it takes a lots of time, right? It's not 1 or 2 years, it's take 160,000 years. So it is a long span of time or a long period of time. That much years have been taken to originate the human beings like us, like modern humans who are having intelligence. Okay, and people obtained during this long span of time, the people lived in this world have been obtained their food by different ways such as scavenging. Okay, scavenging or hunting animals or gathering the plant produces. So the people who were lived in that years, they prepared or they gathered or they obtained their food either by scavenging or hunting animals or gathering the plant produces. Okay. They also learned how to make stone tools and to communicate with each other. And also, in that long span of time only, they studied how they can make stone tools and how they are able to use it. Okay, so during that long span of time, it helped that people who lived that years. Okay, for studying how they have produced their food and how they have made what, yes, stone tools and how they communicated with each other, the tribal peoples who were communicated with each other through different ways. Okay, so that paragraph is that much only. So hope you understand that first paragraph. Then let move on to the second paragraph. Although other ways of obtaining food were adopted later, hunting gathering continued. Even today, there are hunter gatherer societies in some parts of the world. This makes us wonder whether the lifestyles of present day hunter gatherers can tell us about the past. So here it is saying that although today also, what is, yes, today also The hunting gathering societies have existed in some parts of the world. Even today also, in some parts of the world, these hunter gatherer societies are existing. Okay. And in the following years, they adopted another ways for obtaining food. But again, this hunting gathering continued only. They didn't stop this kind of gathering food. Okay. And this makes us, and even today I told you there are some hunter gatherer societies around us. And this makes us wonder that whether they can't tell about the lifestyle of the olden days or about the past days hunter gatherer societies, because they are existing today also, but they can't because they are having a different trait. Because nowadays that human beings have intelligence, but olden days they don't be having such kind intelligence, right? So it is a common one you can understand by using your intelligence, right? So I hope you understand second paragraph also. Then let us move on to the third paragraph. Discoveries of human fossils, stone tools, and cave paintings help us to understand early human history. Each of these discoveries has a history of its own. Very often, when such finds were first made, most scholars refused to accept that these fossils were the remains of early humans. Okay, so here it is saying that we have already know that the story of human beings, right? That means in this chapter we were studying about the beginning of human existence only. So how we come to know that some or several forms of humans have been existed in this world? How we come to know that? So it is by the following ways. Please note it. Discoveries of human fossils and the stone tools and of course cave paintings help us to understand early human history. We have come to know about the beginning of human history is only through the discoveries of fossils. Discoveries of the human fossils and their cave paintings and the stone tools which they left in some parts, okay, some parts of the world. And each of these discoveries has a history of it on. So human fossils is having a history of its own, and also stone tools is having also a history of its own, and cave paintings is also having a history of its own. But very often when such finds were first made, most scholars refused to accept that these fossils were the remains of early humans. And when we said that the beginning of human existence, there have been some human beings had existed in this world. Many scholars were refused to accept that. They told that no, it is not unacceptable because on that day, how the human beings get colors to paint or the how they make the stone tools. Is there any machineries? So these were the questions asked by whom? Yes, scholars. So due to these reasons, most scholars refuse to accept that these fossils were the remains of early humans. They told that these were not the fossils of the yes, these were not the fossils of the early human history, but it is only the remains of the early humans only, not about it's not about whom as the species who have been extinct. It has been some recent times people solely. That was why the scholars refused. Okay, and they were also skeptical about the ability of early humans to make stone tools or paint. And scholars told that there is no chance for the early people that how they make this paint or the tools. This is why the scholars were refused to accept this. Okay, it was only over a period of time that the true significance of these finds was realized. So nowadays, the scholars are accepting all these findings. Okay, because now the archaeological department of India is very strong because they are intelligent human beings only, so they have the ability to think. So the scholars also accepted these right now. Okay, and so hope you understand this paragraph also. So let us move on. Okay. The evidence for human evolution comes from fossils of species of humans which have become extinct. Fossils can be dated either through direct chemical analysis or indirectly by dating the sediments in which they are buried. Once fossils are dated, a sequence of human evolution can be worked out. So here it is saying that actually they have already said that the human beings have existed in this world. So here it is saying that the evidence for the existence of humans or the evidence for human evolution is coming from the fossils of the species of mans which have become extinct. In this world, the species of humans have become extinct, and we have got some fossils of humans, right? So from that only we have got the evidence for human evolution or the existence of the human from this world. Okay, and then next we are going to talk you with the dating of fossils. Okay, so the fossils can be dated through two methods. One is through direct chemical analysis, and the other one is through indirectly by dating the sediments in which they are buried. Okay, so there are two ways for dating the sediments, and the first one is what? Yes, first one is through direct chemical analysis or through indirectly dating the sediments in which they are buried. Okay, so fossils can be dated through two methods. First is one directly, and the another one is indirectly. Directly, how is direct chemical analysis, or indirectly by dating the sediments in which they are buried. Okay, then, once fossils are dated, a sequence of human evolution can be worked out. So here it is saying that once we have discovered once we have discovered or once we have discovered a fossils by dated, then we can see that a sequence of human evolution can be worked out with the help of it. Okay, here it is saying that once the fossils are dated, then by the help of or with the help of that only we can introduce or we can work out a sequence of human evolution. Okay, so hope you understand this para also. So let us move on to the next para. When such discoveries were first made about 200 years ago, many scholars were often reluctant to accept that fossils and other finds, including stone tools and paintings, were actually connected with early forms of humans. This reluctance generally stemmed from their belief in the Old Testament of the Bible, according to which human origin was regarded as an act of creation by God. Okay. So here it is saying that when such discovery means the discoveries of human fossils, stone tools or the tool relics and the cave paintings. Okay. So here, when such discoveries were first made, and it was made in which year? Yes, about 200 years ago. So about 200 years ago, the discoveries were first made, and at that time itself, many scholars were often reluctant to accept this. At that time itself, many scholars were reluctant to accept that fossils and other finds, including stone tools and paintings, were actually connected with early forms of humans. Okay, so what was their reluctance? They were told that these cave paintings or the stone tools or the fossils you have found from some parts of the world are not being a part of the persons who were lived in the olden days or in the past few days. Okay, so that is why the scholars were refused. Okay. And this reluctance is generally stemmed from their belief. So scholars refused this because of their belief in the Old Testament of Bible. Okay, they were Christians and they believed in the Old Testament of Bible. In Bible itself, it is saying that what? Yes, the human origin was regarded as an act of creation by God. So in Bible it is saying that human creation or the human origin was an act of creation by God. Human beings are created by the God only. So the scholars were refused to accept, or they showed their reluctance because due to these reasons only. They said that because in the Old Testament of Bible, it is saying that all the human beings were created by the God. Okay. So this is the major reason. Hope you understand. So let us move into the next paragraph. For instance, in August 1856, workmen who were quarrying for limestone in the Neanderthal Valley, a gorge near the German city of Dusseldorf, found a skull and some skeletal fragments. These were handed over to Karl Verhut, a local schoolmaster and a natural historian, who realized that they did not belong to a modern human. He then made a plaster cast of the skull and sent it to Hermann Schaffhausen, a professor of anatomy at Bonn University. Okay, so this were up to this only we were talking. Okay, so let us move on. So, for instance, about in August 1856, August, okay, in August 1856, some of the people were working in a quarry for quarrying limestone. Okay, some workmen were working in a quarry for limestone in the Neander Valley, a gorge. Okay, a gorge near the German city of Dusseldorf. Okay, so in August 1856, some workmen were working in a quarry for quarrying limestone near in the Neander Valley, a gorge near the German city of Dusseldorf. Okay, and there, when this workmen were quarrying, they got a skull. They found a skull and some 18 skeletal fragments. Okay, some fragments of the skeleton. Okay, and they looked at it, and at last only they came to understand that this is a skull and skeletal fragments. Okay, so they handed so they take these all things, the skull and the skeletal fragments, they took with them and they handed over all this to a local school master and a natural historian named Karl Verhoot. Okay, so, in 1856 August, some workmen were working in a quarry near the Neander Valley, a gorge near the German city of Dusseldorf. And when they were working, they got or they found a skull and some skeletal fragments. And what did they do? Yes, these were handed. This workmen were handed all these to a local schoolmaster and a natural historian named Karl Fahrenheit. Okay, and he realized that it does not belong to a modern human. He realized that it does not belong to a modern human, and he then made a plaster cast of the skull. Okay, he realized that it is does not belong to a modern human, and he do a plaster cast on the skull, and he sent it to professor of anatomy at Bonn University named what is Hermann Schaffhausen. Okay, so once again, in August 1856, some workmen were working in the quarry for limestone in the Neander Valley, a gorge near the German city of Dusseldorf. Okay, and when they were quarrying limestone, they found a skull and some skeletal fragments. These were handed over to a local schoolmaster and natural historian named Karl Verhoot. And at that time itself, he realized that this skull and the skeletal fragments does not belong to a modern human being. Okay, and he then made a plaster cast of this, and he sent the plaster cast of the skull to Hermann Schaffhausen, who is a professor of anatomy at Bonn University. The following year, they jointly published a paper claiming that this skull represented a form of human that was extinct. At that time, scholars did not accept this view and instead declared that the skull belonged to a person of more recent times. Okay, so here it is saying that this Karl Fahot, the local schoolmaster and the natural historian and the professor of anatomy joined together. Okay, so here it is saying that Karl Fahot and Hermann Schaffhausen joined together, and in the following year, that means 1857, they published a paper. Okay, They jointly published a paper, and in that paper they were claiming that they got a skull and it is represented as a form of human that was extinct from this world. Okay, so they jointly in the coming or in the following year they jointly published a paper, and in that paper they were claiming that they got a skull and it is represented a form of human who became extinct from this world about years ago, million years ago. Okay, and when some of the scholars were came to read this news from the paper, which was published jointly by the local schoolmaster and the professor of anatomy. That means Carl Fahot and Hermann Schaffhausen's paper is going to is have been read by the scholars, and at that time the scholars were refused to accept, or they did not accept this view. Okay, because they said that it is does not belongs to the person, the human being which have been extinct from this world, but it belongs to the person who were lived more recent times. Okay, so that was the dialogue between the scholars. Okay, so here, once again, in 1856 August, some workmen were working for limestone in the Neanderthal Valley and a gorge near the German city of Dusseldorf. They found, when they were quarrying for limestone, they found a skull and some skeletal fragments. And these workmen handed over all these skull and some skeletal fragments to a local schoolmaster and a natural historian named Carl Fahut. At that time itself, he realized that this does not belong to a modern human. And he then made a plaster cast of the skull and he sent it to a Hermann Schaffhausen, who is a professor of anatomy at Bonn University. And the following year itself, the Hermann Schaffhausen and the Carl Fahut what jointly published a paper, and in that paper they told that they got a skull and it represented a form of human that was extended from this world. At that time scholars did not accept this view, their view. Okay, and instead of accepting that, they argued or they declared that the skull that goat for the worksmen who were quarrying for limestone is belonging to a person of more recent times. Okay, hope you understand all these things. So let us move on. So here it is, one picture is given. Recovering fossils, a painstaking process. The precise location of finds is more important for dating. Okay, this is for just a reference. Okay, don't need to study, but you have to mark these sentence. For instance, in August 1856, workmen who were quarrying for limestone in the Neanderthal Valley, a gorge near that up to recent times. Next paragraph, full. Okay, that paragraph is more important, much and more important. Okay, so please read. And this figure is not important. Okay, just refer it only. So next, the last paragraph and today's last topic. On 24th November 1859, when Charles Darwin on the Origin of Species was published, marked a landmark in the study of evolution. All 1,250 copies of the first print were sold out the same day. Darwin argued that humans had evolved from animals a long time ago. Okay, so here it is saying that so after 3 years, okay, after 3 years, Charles Darwin, a natural historian named Charles Darwin. Okay, he published a book. He published a book on the origin of species, and actually. I will be saying that para once again. On 24th November 1859, when Charles Darwin on the Origin of Species was published, marked a landmark in the study of evolution. Okay, I will be saying. Charles Darwin is a natural historian who lived in the years 1809 to 1892. Okay. So his birth year is 1809 and he died in the year 1892. So Charles Darwin is a natural historian, and On 24th November 1859, he put forward a theory of biological evolution in 1860, and it influenced the thinking of a large number of scholars and scientists. Okay, and then in 1859 itself, he published his Origin of Species. Okay, and in that book, Charles Darwin is arguing that the humans have evolved only from animals about a long years ago. Okay. So on 24th November 1859, Charles Darwin, a natural historian, put forward on the Origin of Species was published in the year 1859, and which marked a landmark in the study of human evolution. That book only gives a fundamental for the study of evolution. Okay, and on that day itself, he printed out 1250 copies of the first print. Okay, so on that day, the first print was 1250 copies were made on the first day, and all the 100 250 copies were sold out on the same day. Okay, and in that book, Darwin is arguing that the humans have been evolved from animals only about a long span of time. Okay, this is also important, so please mark it. Okay, so hope you understand this much. So today we are going to complete only this much part. And here it is saying that activity number one, most religions have stories about the creation of human beings, which often do cannot correspond with scientific discoveries. So here it is saying that most of the religions in this world, even it is Hindu, Christian, Muslim, Sikh, even any religion in this world is having a story about the creation of human beings. Okay, but these all things do not correspond with scientific theories. There are major differences. Okay, and here one figure is given that the skull of Neanderthal man. Some of those who dismiss the antiquity of the skull regard it as it British or that of a brutish or pathological idiot. Okay, sorry, actually I didn't saw that word. That is why I read it as British. Sorry, it is brutish. Okay, so, the skull of Neanderthal man, some of those who dismiss the antiquity of the skull regarded it as brutish or that of a pathological idiot. Okay, so this much is there in your first introduction part. So once again, so in this chapter we told that we are going to study about the beginning of human existence, and it was about 5.6 million years ago. Then we studied that modern humans have been originated about 1000 sorry 1 lakh 16,000 years ago only. And that time people how they obtain the people how obtain their food, and how they make the stone tools, and how they communicate with each other, that all things we studied. And even today also hunter gatherer societies were existing. I told you. Then how we come to know about the early human histories through only human fossils, stone tools, and cave paintings. Then each of this having a history of its own. Then next I have told you about the evidence for human evolution have been come from the species of humans only, which have been extinct, and fossils can be dated through two methods. And these discoveries were first made about 200 years ago only. At that time itself, the scholars began to refuse all these things. And then next we studied that the scholars were refused that because of their belief in the Old Testament of the Bible. Then we studied about the origin of human evolution, right? And some worksmen were working in a quarry for limestone in the Neander Valley, a gorge near the German city of Dusseldorf. And at that time, they found a skull and some skeletal fragments, and they were handed over these to Carl Fachert, a local schoolmaster and natural historian. And at that time itself, the historian and a local schoolmaster, Carl Fachert, realized that that does not belong to a modern human, And he then made a plaster cast of the skull and he sent it to a professor of anatomy at Bonn University named Hermann Schaffhausen. And the following year, they jointly published a paper claiming that they got a skull and which belongs to a person or a human being which have been existed from this world about millions of years ago. And at that time many scholars did not accept this view, and instead of accepting that, they declared that the skull belonged to a person of more recent times. And here it is a picture, it is not having any kind of importance, just refer. Okay, then we studied that Charles Darwin, a natural historian, on 24th November 1859 published on the origin of species, and which marked a landmark in the study of human evolution. And on the first day itself, he printed 1250 copies. On the same day itself, all the copies were sold out. And in that book, Darwin, on the origin of species, Charles Darwin is arguing that humans have been evolved from animals a long time ago. Okay, and this is a picture of this is the skull. Okay, this is the picture of the skull of the Neanderthal man. And some of those who dismiss the antiquity of the skull is regarded as it brutish or that of a pathological idiot. Okay, so hope you understand all those things as we have been studied today. So if you like my channel, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and also press the bell icon for the latest videos. Okay, thank you, friends.